Hello friends, this is 2 Minutes in Luke. Luke 21 through 23 is all about Jesus' suffering, and there is so much here that I would like to discuss with you, but time will not permit us to discuss the 12 wrangling over status, the period of testing that the 12 are entering as Satan has already sifted out Judas, and we wonder if he will succeed in sifting out the rest. Jesus' prayer in Gethsemane, that the cup might pass from him, the cup of suffering. But if not, he's willing to play his part in the plan his Father has determined. And his trial before the council. I'd like to discuss all of those things with you. But in this short video, I want to focus on the Passover meal. I want you to notice how Luke stresses the special relationship between Jesus and his followers. Chapter 22, verse 15. I have eagerly desired to eat this Passover meal with you before I suffer. I love the picture of close relationship and fellowship between Jesus and his followers. And then Luke tells us in verse 17 that Jesus took a cup and said, "Take this cup and divide it among yourselves." They are going to share this cup, and sharing in the cup signifies a sharing in the suffering of Christ. And indeed, in the book of Acts, the sequel to Luke, we will see how the 12 shared in Christ's sufferings. And I want you to remember here that every disciple will be like his teacher. Then in verse 19, Luke informs us that Jesus let his followers know that he would give himself for them. The bread that Jesus broke and gave to them represents his body. And he said, "Keep doing this as a remembrance of me." What is to be remembered by the repetition of this ritual act is Jesus. The weekly supper is time with, for, and in memory of Jesus. It's Jesus time. And then Jesus took another cup. You know, the Passover meal had several cups, perhaps as many as 4. And with this cup, he said, "This cup that is poured out for you is the new covenant in my blood." The covenant, it's a binding relationship. And think of all the Old Testament covenants or agreements that were sealed by the spilling of blood. There was the covenant with Abraham, which was enacted by the splitting of victims, and then Abraham walked between the victims. And think of the covenant that God established with Israel at the Exodus, with the killing of the sacrificial lamb and the spreading of that lamb's blood on the doorpost. And with our covenant with God, it required the same pouring out of someone's blood, or in other words, the pouring out of someone's life. And that someone, of course, was Jesus, God's own Son, God in the flesh. The sacrifice, according to verse 20, is vicarious. It is for you, Jesus said, or it is for us. And so it is by the giving of his life in sacrifice that Jesus made a donation to God for the sake of others. Then Jesus refers to his betrayal. But what is this betrayal by Judas? Only part of a larger process that no human agency controls. According to verse 22, Jesus is moving toward a destiny determined by God. And aren't we so grateful that Jesus submitted himself to the will of God? May we do the same.